And then it always spools. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill.
Oh man. And we're 10 seconds late. No big deal. Usual. I feel like this is becoming my Mr. Rogers routine. I start this, and then I realize that my glasses are just disgusting. I can barely see out of them, and then I must clean them. So it's the changing of the shoes and the sweater.
Yeah, let's say the sweater. Or the shoes too, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a little Mr. Rogers likeness, right?
Not at all, man. Not at all. He gets discussed actually a lot in the new Ryan Holiday book about stillness.
Really?
Yeah, and kind of this really unique take on it. And I don't know if anybody else has talked about it this way, but it talks about how the very first shot is that yellow light, right, of caution, slow down, and stuff like that. And the whole process is about leaving outside stuff outside and cultivating an interior mindset, and how Mr. Rogers got bullied and stuff like this, and how he had to go and build all this kind of himself, and then the goal was just to do it for others. Really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, and I've been reading about mindfulness, digital mindfulness mostly, and so I've been exploring some of those concepts myself, and it's very similar what they say about the interior versus the exterior.
Yeah. So I was meditating over yesterday, and I was trying to talk to Melissa afterwards about some of the thoughts that had come in and had left and stuff, and she was like, "But did you meditate?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, but these are just some of the things that I had thought about." And she's like, "Well, you're not supposed to be thinking about anything." And I'm like, "Well, that's how it's discussed, but I don't really think that that's reasonable."
Yeah,
right?
That would be perfect meditation, and perfect. So,
the way that I think about it recently is that the goal is to not think about any one thing, right? It's about and the way that I think about it is how many times can I get started to be pulled down a tangent or a hallway, and how often can I not this time, right? I'm not going to go down that path.
That's the way I understand it. You're not going to remove thoughts, you're just going to dismiss them quickly, observe them and keep going. And I think journaling's more for that exploration of thoughts.
Well, I kind of had this thought this morning, right? That if because then Melissa and she kind of dropped it, but I was kind of noodling on that idea for the rest of the day, because this is a remarkably difficult thing to build, because the payoffs in the beginning are so small, right? I'm just better at sitting here not talking to anybody.
Right.
But that thing yesterday, I think there's something to that, right? There's lots of things that I could be thinking about, but I'm not going to spend my time thinking about these things, right? Not thinking about these things. And when we look at the concept of stoicism and focusing on what you can control, which is kind of the thing that you and I kind of really get jacked up on, is focusing on what you can control, not worrying about the things you can't control. I feel like the meditation part of it is such a great place to start when you can think about it that way, right? The mental toughness of, oh, this thing sounds or looks interesting, I'm going to think about this, but wait a minute, I'm not. I'm just going to let that thing go because there might be something else here. I think that what happens is after a while you get to a level of ownership of, oh, I don't have to think about these things, right? So it kind of builds in this mental toughness, which I don't think is the goal, but it just kind of comes as a byproduct. And so then I think that the other stuff becomes easier, right? If you're not this slave to having to think about whatever's there in front of you, whatever puts the mind in, or whatever your mind puts in front of you, then you can really start to think about, oh, I'm not going to think about that because I don't have any control over it. And I think that starts to proliferate over into the other parts of your life as well.
Yeah. In this book I'm reading, that their thesis is by learning that skill, being able to detach from those things, and move on quickly from things that you can't control. And that's not exactly how they explain it, but it's the same idea. You actually get better when external things do that to you, of letting them pass by. So it decreases anger, it decreases anxiety, it decreases, different things like that. Of course, all the studies are out there now that meditation's great. But it's by building a discipline. And I'm not sure that's interesting that you say it that way, of mental toughness, because I'm not sure if I see that particular part of meditation as toughness. It definitely makes you more Teflon, which would go with kind of that toughness look. But like it's almost the opposite in a weird way of being of toughness. It's like you let it go through you, whereas toughness, I think of like you put your shoulder down and it bounces off of you. And so that's an interesting thought swirling in my head right now. It's like,
well, I think just like anything else, in the beginning you do it badly, right? Like, there were so many times at the Kung Fu school that I'm teaching like a brand new student, and they're just so rigid. They're so just like locked up and it's like so stressed out. And I'm like, hey, you got to relax. They're like, I am relaxed. It's like, no, you're not. You're not at all. Right.
Yeah.
And I think in the beginning of meditation, it's exactly like that. Like, oh, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm thinking so hard about nothing. I'm only thinking about how hard I'm not thinking.
Exactly.
So, somebody told me this once. Oh, Al talks about this actually, because Al is a runner and triathlete person, or he used to be. He doesn't really do a whole lot of it anymore. But he talks about that the first 30 days of like learning to swim and like getting and building a swim practice is as much about stop fighting the water as it is about like actually swimming. Right.
Yeah.
Because you haven't spent enough time in the water to like really trust your tools. So then what happens is you fight against them. Right. And that fighting against them is that thing that takes us past that like 80% into that 20% that doesn't serve us. Right. Of like, oh my God, I got to work so hard to stay like above, because you just haven't figured out like the floating aspect of it yet.
Yeah.
I feel like everything has got that part where you're trying to be like 100% of it, right? And you're trying so hard, and it's such like a meaningful, I'm putting every thought, every emotion into this thing. So that last 20% is where we're putting way too much effort. And I feel like meditation's the same way, right? You're sitting there and you're like, don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. And you think about one thing and you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden you come back and you're just beating yourself up about how hard you're not supposed to be thinking about something, right? So then you're just like mentally whipping yourself for like not like letting go enough, right? That's not how you're going to let go, because you're just focused on like, I didn't do it well enough. I didn't do it well enough, right? As opposed to being like, well, maybe this time will be better, right?
Yeah.
And to me, like that's where we start to get into like the inner game of tennis with like self 1, self 2 stuff, right? Yep. If you're just like, man, can't do all these things, then you're not going to get anything done. But
that's self 1. Yeah.
Exactly. But like when it's, oh, well, okay, next time we'll be better. I can be a little bit better next time. I can be a little bit better next time.
Yep.
That to me is where you start to get into really cool stuff.
What's interesting too is there's good morning, Michelle and Levi. What's going on?
Good morning, Michelle and Levi.
There's I think the word let is a big part of that, right? That people don't process when they're thinking about let go, like letting things go. Like there's a let. So there is a submission of, right? So like when you're strong and when you're blocking, you're not letting anything through. But when you're letting through, you know that there's an outcome on the other side that's worth letting this stuff through, because you know it's not going to harm you. So like I finished all the Hitmans, by the way, again. I watched 2 of them this weekend. I'd watched 1, I think I told you last weekend, and I'd watched 2 like on Monday night, and then Friday night I was like, I'm doing it. So
dang, all right, hardcore, I like it.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed this time around, and I knew this before because I know you, and I know enough about Kung Fu through you to know that there are things that you're supposed to let into your space, because then you can, kind of like a keto, you can use that movement to your advantage. And one of the, I think it was 3 or 4, is one of the later ones, because I only seen them once long ago. He lets a punch through purposefully so that he can grab the guy's arm, and he just like does something like up here where he freezes the guy's arm, but he's just getting his butt kicked so bad that he's like, I have to do something different. So he lets this punch through so that he can get here and disable the guy. And it's just not something I had really noticed in that manner before, that he chose to let something that looked harmful in because he knew it would be okay, because he was going to do something with it. And same idea here with meditation. You let the things in, and then you just pass them along. Oops. Got it. Or you hit them.
Yes, or you hit them. Yeah, I think that like, I mean, obviously the struggle has got benefit, right? Because the struggle makes you better. And I think you have to do that like 100% effort, even though like 20% of it is making it exponentially harder, so that way you can really, right? Because every time that somebody hits that level of, fighting the emotional tendency to try harder, right? Like once you do that, you can put that thing down. Oh, right. And I'm sure that everybody has this, right? But like, I've got these like key areas that like, it's super important to do those things, right? I mean, if you're structurally rigid and you're trying to do, specifically Wing Chun, Kung Fu, it's not going to work, right? At all. You're going to end up, making it way worse. So you have to like let go, right? And one of the very first things that everybody talks about once you get to a certain level is that like the Wing Chun practitioner is not scared of getting hit, right? So because of that, I can make a miss happen like right here. I don't need to have that miss happen like way out here, because that's additional energy that I don't need to put into that, and honestly makes the altercation harder to work my program in. Poker is the same way, right? I can have fluffy, amazing feelings about hands like 9-7 and King 9, and I can have these memories in my head of like, oh yeah, I played King 9 once and it came King 9 and I won a huge pot. Let's do that again, right? No, that's there. It's reinforcing bad belief, because there's luck in the outcome, right? Poker is huge about that. Martial arts is fighting about that. Sales is actually the same way. Man, I followed up with this guy 73 times. So therefore, that's what we have to do for like each one. Well, maybe you just don't pitch that guy that early, right? And then you don't have to follow up with him 73 times, because how many other people could you be talking to, right? And it's this emotional detachment, right? There are these things around everything that we do that your emotion is going to like suck you into it and probably have an impact on how you view it, right? And then the journaling and the meditation is about holding yourself apart from just like your emotions in that moment. Do I really believe this to be true? Do I know it to be true? Because if not, then maybe I'm setting myself up for failure, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest parts of any practice like that is it's like saying thank you to the emotion and making a decision that's not based on the emotion.
Yeah.
It's thank you for that input. I understand. I'm going to look at some other input. Keep going. Like it's so hard to do. It's easy to say, but that's where the rubber meets the road in life. And I think all these practices help you do that more effectively. Yeah.
It was over the weekend where I was trying to get Alice to do something like clean her room or do a chore or something like this. And she kept finding like every little thing. Right. And then she'd come back and be like, hey guys, I know we're not really talking about getting my ears pierced now, but I'd like to talk about when we're going. And it's like, no, that's not the thing we're doing right now. Go finish the thing,
right.
And then Dad, we talked about this the other day, and she just, it was crazy how much she came up with to avoid, like just the action, right? And we're doing the same thing as adults. Like if you don't think that you're doing this in your life, in your relationships, and your roles and stuff like this, you absolutely are. You just don't have a parent who is like that detached.
Yeah.
And can see it so clearly, right?
That's the humor, because you can't see it in yourself, but you can see it in your kids and like your spouse and your friends, but we just, the fingers that point back at us, never.
Absolutely.
You just don't see those. It's just, good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Ann. Man, yeah. So I had some epiphanies over the weekend, and I had some. Honestly, this morning I woke up. So I've been slipping a little bit in my sleeping and wake up habits, right? And the goal this week is to be at like 80% or above on my tracker.
Okay.
That's my goal this week, right? Because I've been hovering around 60% kind of month to date, and that wasn't. Oh, hold on. Let's check in.
You said full tracker; it was up. So.
Oh man, dude, you're killing me. I love it.
Well,
right?
Clearly, I'm having trouble with the strength training, but
Yeah.
that's why I talked about the app last week. Is because the app is actually what's gotten me to these wins, and as you can see,
yeah.
Today I will hit that.
Yeah.
And then down here, I'm doing much better.
Oh yeah, man, you're doing really good. Do you have anything in the relationship? Oh, dude, you're crushing in the relationship. Oh my god! All right.
Well, I'm heavy I, so I love relational things. It's important to
me. Yeah. So I've been hovering around 60%. The goal is to be at like 80% or higher for like everything this week. So,
let's do it.
Yeah, I like that as because like I don't really have just any one thing. So I'm holding myself accountable to all these things. I've got this tracker, so let's try to do as much of that as we can.
Mm-hmm. So, and that blue little asterisk too is helpful. I just noticed it this weekend, which is why I put it in there. But to me, that's where you can raise your 60, because set your expectation around meditation to be, I'll do it 3 times a week, and then that way, if you hit 3, you put blue stars in the other spots, and then you've actually hit what you're going for.
The original version of the tracker just had the yes or no, and then you could leave like the blank, if it was like a weekend kind of deal. And I was like, man, I really don't like that, because I like, I think it's Seinfeld who talks about this, the importance of checking the box and being consistent, when you're breaking a habit or building a habit. I think it's Seinfeld who talks about that. And I really like that. So I wanted to be purposeful, right? If you're making the decision that it was not applicable for this day, you're still mentally doing like
the box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah. I think even in Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about it as well, but you're right. I think Seinfeld was the one that kind of brought it up to popular culture.
Okay. What do you got today, Bill?
I've got writing today for a client. Okay. So I'll be working on some of that. And then I've got a workout that I'm going to check a yes on.
Nice.
I've got SEO, actually. So there's an SEO package that we automatically include that's pre-built based on best practices. I just got to go hit the application stuff on that hits all the dots. And then what I'm going to be doing is, I don't know if you have this issue, because at this point, electronics are across every age group almost.
Yeah.
I will be setting a shut off time for my Wi-Fi at my house, and I'm looking to figure out a way to do it on my phones, because my kids sneak those phones back in after bedtime and stay up super late certain nights.
You can't do it at the router?
I can't. That's what I'm saying. I haven't attempted. Luckily for me, I have pretty obedient kids. They pretty much just do what they're told. But I have a 15-year-old boy now, and we all know what happens when you turn 15-year-old boys. He knows better than everybody. So, so I've had to explore that. But yeah, I'm sure I can go to the router. But I'm just wondering at this point if I can schedule a time, because I don't have to manually every night go turn it off. I'd like for it just to shut off by itself on a schedule. So there's got to be a way to do it. But same thing. I know they have parental controls for kids' phones through your service, and so I'm trying to figure out how to get that done today. So I don't work with that anymore. Because of course, one of the byproducts. Hey, Gabriel.
Good morning, Gabe.
Of reading digital mindfulness and watching Social Dilemma and doing all these different things is you're like, yep, okay, it's time. We're making some changes.
Yeah. Alice. Oh, on Friday, Alice had a math quiz and just decided. So math is the subject that she struggles with the most, and so she just decided, I'm just going to guess. Right. So didn't work the process, didn't do anything at all, and just guess these things to hurry, right, and get through the thing. Melissa had walked in, and she's like, "Hey, like how's the quiz?" And Alice like, "Oh, it's totally fine, blah blah blah, everything," and the clapper. Good job, Levi. Actually, there probably is a smart device that you can, or you could probably just tie it to some sort of Alexa or Google thing, so that way you can have an electronic device. That way you can cut down on how much electronic devices you have in
Yes.
your
I'm
room.
going to rely on electronics to kill my electronics. How meta is that?
So Melissa, of course, was just like furious, right? Because like she felt like she got lied to, and that was, on top of like not doing well on this quiz. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna tag in, and we kind of worked through the rest of the quiz as a makeup because she'd already failed, and then we grounded her for the weekend, right, just away from the iPad. And man, you would have thought that we had like picked out a box, poked one hole in it, we're gonna ship her to somebody else, anywhere else. Yeah. Man, it was crazy. And I was like, you're not even grounded to your room. Like, you can still like come out of your room and walk around and watch. Like when I was a kid, grounded meant like you didn't come out of your room, and I got grounded for a whole summer once, So like, dude, my dad dropped the grounding hammer like it was just nothing, right? Oh, I didn't like your tonality, you're grounded for the rest of the day. Like, just go to your room. Oh, So
yeah. Well,
it's crazy.
It's parenting, right?
Parenting. So all that to say, I have AT&T, and the router that they ship you has got parental controls built into it, and then I have a separate router that just has a little button, so I can just walk up, hit the button, and it shuts down all. I use it not at all because I want my internet at 12:30 at night whenever I should be asleep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's perfect for me too. That's of course the selfish part of me goes, all right, I might shut this thing off at 9:30, 10 o'clock. That way they go to bed. They have, because I want them to have an hour without screens before they go to bed because of the blue light. So it's like, and I want them in bed by really 10 or 10:30. So that means I got to shut it down at like 9. And so I was like, I don't want to shut my Wi-Fi down at 9. But guess what? There's a lot of other things. I mean, I get to bed before 10 o'clock, so I can kill an hour,
man,
reading or doing something like that. No problem.
I see so much value in the early bedtime and working on my sleep, even though I struggle with it. I mean, a lot. But the idea of going to bed like at 10 is still.
I was asleep at 9:20 last night.
Dang. Like, part of me is like jealous, right? But then the other part of me is like, oh, like how much would my life have to change to go to bed at 9:20 regularly? And the answer is a lot.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I mean, Alice isn't even in bed until 9:30 most nights and stuff like this. So,
well, I go to bed before my kids. That's one of the reasons I got to turn the Wi-Fi off, because I can't trust them to just go to bed and turn it off. Because even I have them turn their phones in when I go to bed, right? I'm like, all right, turn your phones in, plug them in, and they go get them because dads will be asleep in 20 minutes. So, so it's backup measures at this point.
Man, I remember very clearly whenever I started to like stay up later than my parents, right? And I was probably 12 or 13 or so, and I can't imagine like my kid being at that age and being like, yeah, Dad, you just go to bed, I'm just gonna stay up. Like, that's gonna mess with my head a little bit, I think.
It was weird. It was a transition for me for sure. The next one that's coming is driving, because he's 15, so it means we're gonna be permitting and driving in parking lots and stuff. And I'm just starting to get to a point like this weekend. I was like, how in the world did my parents hand me keys? I would never ever hand a 15 or 16-year-old boy's keys to my car, much less his own car. It's like, holy cow! Now that I have one, I'm like, dude, this dude can't even remember. Well, or healthy, however you want to look at it. I have healthy sleep patterns. But if you want to say, yeah, I'm getting old.
Yeah. Spin it, sell it, however you want, Mr. Jordan.
I'm very happy with it. I love it. It makes me so happy.
Oh yeah, the driving thing is going to be pretty interesting. Thankfully, I've got plenty of time.
Yeah. And then luckily, COVID slowed a lot of that down too. It's like, well, we can't really go much anywhere anyway until like a few weeks. So it's like,
yeah. Oh man. So for me today, yeah. So the funnel that Levi is on, the guy has another friend who wants to be a closer. So he is also coming on. Him and Levi are going to be splitting the lead volume. And so he's going to start working with us on our Monday, Wednesday, Thursday calls. So that'll be exciting. So that's at 8:15. At 11 o'clock, I've got a mastermind call with the mastermind group. We're going to hopefully get dialing started this week because we need to get some dials downrange. Coaching call with Brandon. I have a new coaching call with Ben, who was a closer who I put on another deal. And then I have a pipe drive call with a friend of mine at 4 to 4:45. He wants to make some changes to what he sees and what kind of notifications he gets. So we're going to work through that.
Cool.
So yeah, I've got some time today. I need to get this course done this week. Like I'm just under the weight of it, and it's in the home stretch. So just got to get it done.
So do we have bill bets this week?
My big bill bet this week is like I want to be at 80% on my tracker for all the things that we talk about, right? So that includes writing every day, deep work every day, 45 on Facebook, 45 on LinkedIn, and then all the morning self-care stuff, and honestly the evening self-care stuff, right?
Cool.
AM, PM journaling, meditate daily, all these things, a mindful lunch, as opposed to just scrolling endlessly on social media on my lunch break, which is normally what happens, So just that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So 80%. That's good. Okay, cool. Well, I have a pretty big one. I'm going to finish my outline for my book. So I've had it compiled in all different spots, and like I started gathering the end of last week, and and I actually put together a page to start outlining the table of contents, and then the points under each chapter, and then subpoints. So the goal is to have all the chapters lined out, at least a first draft version, my main points, and then my subpoints across the top to the bottom. I won't have the intro and conclusion done, obviously, because that's different. I'll have to write that towards the end.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my goal by Friday, is to have something I can show.
Man, very cool. That's super exciting.
Yeah.
We found out. So the book coach has the new version of the book, all 80 something pages of it, and we're at the stage now to where I need to show it to about 5 people, right? And the people that I'm trying to show it to are people who are not super familiar with my stuff, so that way they kind of get the cold view of this, and like, is it complete? Are there gaps in it? Stuff like this. So
nice.
She has a list of people in their like with 30s and 40s and 50s who it would make sense to show the book to, because they have enough knowledge that they can vet it,
Gotcha.
well. So goal is to get that done this week, which is exciting and also nerve-wracking.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was actually setting some goals around the book this weekend, and I was getting a little nervous. I was like, this is actually going to happen. I'm putting it out there, so now it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, awesome, man. Well, yeah, so I need to work on that this week, which I will probably try to procrastinate on, so I'm going to try not to. Yeah, man. Anything going to get in your way today?
Nope. I've already got it lined out. Schedule looks good, so I think we're good. Yeah.
No, man. I mean, I'm sure I can find a way to derail myself, but the goal will be to not.
Right. It won't be lunchtime scrolling.
Exactly. Absolutely. Awesome. All right, Bill. Well, have a good day, sir, and I will see you in the morning.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Levi. Thanks, Gabriel.